This is one of the most famous games in StarCraft history, and it's also one of the shortest. So, Greg IdrA Fields is taking on NonY here, and in Game 1 we saw IdrA go for an exciting and surprising 2-factory vulture drop, as pretty much everyone was expecting him to go for a fast command center of some kind and try to make his way into the late game, because that's what IdrA was known for. The guy who was always going to try to macro against you, take a ton of bases, force late game, because remember, the longer a StarCraft game goes, the more skillful it becomes, because the more things there are to do on the map. And if you consider that, Brood War is a much more mechanically intensive game than StarCraft 2. That's even more true for Brood War, where if you're the good player, it really benefits you to put a lot of pressure on economically in the late game. Be in these positions where you're taking a ton of bases, you're making units out of a lot of production. It's not one base versus one base, where one base versus one base, even a low-level player can macro, 2 gateways, one base versus one base. IdrA wants to make it, 6 base versus 6 base, where you're having to do 200 actions worth of stuff just to keep up at a minimum. Not even including army movement, just 200 actions of macro. That's where IdrA was known to try to take the game. So a lot of people sort of assumed that he was going to play for an economic focused style and he was never going to be aggressive. Well, there were multiple times in his career where he was aggressive, and one that stands out in my mind, at least, whenever I think about StarCraft 2, is whenever he was playing Zerg, which, a lot like Terran in this game, was not any good at being aggressive, as IdrA's going to open for racks on the high ground tier, and then he's certainly going to expand. And NonY has gone for Gateway expand as opposed to the nice little Nexus first he was able to pull out last game. And I'm sure NonY thought that he was getting ahead, Nexus first, got down, couldn't be punished. He wasn't getting messed with until boom, right whenever he wanted to start making DTs. Unfortunately for him, the vultures came in. But the other IdrA game that I remember him being aggressive on and using drop surprisingly was the IPL series against Kiwikaki, the game on Shakura's Plateau. I've covered it in the Venomous Classic series. The IPL finals against Kiwikaki, IdrA goes down 0-2, and a lot of people speculate, oh, IdrA's going to get mad, he's going to tilt. IdrA's down 0-2, he's just going to give up and he's going to do an all-in, or there's no way, IdrA rage, the meme, he's not going to be able to come back, he's rattled. And IdrA basically beautifully came back in that series, and he used Roach Hydra drop. And here we see NonY using the S-Class unit to probe to harass the command center. IdrA's trying to halt production on this SCV and get it transferred off, getting the bunker started, going for a gasless marine expand, and he accidentally cancels the command center. That's devastating, losing the SCV to boot, and IdrA GG's. So what we saw there was incredibly weird and something that you never really see, because what essentially happened was the probe harass was so irritating and did so well that as IdrA was trying to use the halt command on the SCV, he accidentally misclicked and he hit the escape key on the command center. He meant to left click the SCV, he left clicked the command center, and when he hit escape, his CC just canceled. And he sort of assumed that NonY had expanded and said to himself, look, I'm not going to sit here and play this game from an insurmountable economic disadvantage and just die to the follow-up and be frustrated. So whatever, we're going to go next, and I'm just going to try to memory hole that game. But that's weird, because if you look at the best of 5 and the context of the best of 5, Outsider is a weird semi-island map. This map was in the early seasons of ASL. It's just a weirdo map, and it's definitely an oddball. Destination was sort of a standard macro map, and then Fighting Spirit is the classic macro map. But after taking game 1, IdrA was really in the driver's seat, and he pretty much just shoots himself in the foot there by accidentally canceling his own command center and then just leaving. That's one of the most famous early leaves, IdrA leave, LOL situations of all time, where he is not really messed with except for the probe harass, which is actually completely infuriating in this game because of how fast the probe is and how it can shoot almost like a moving shot at a range that you wouldn't even believe if you're a new-time Terran player. So IdrA accidentally cancels his own command center and then just leaves. So Tide 1 to Mon. Sub so you see the next games.